Nico Iamaleava is the new starting quarterback at Tennessee. I don't remember this much buzz around a Tennessee starting quarterback since a certain freshman took over during the 1994 season. Now, Peyton Manning's situation was a little bit different because he actually didn't start that season. I believe it was Brandon Stewart who started that season. Todd Helton was also on that team. The Baseball Hall of Famer, Todd Helton, was a quarterback on that team. That's the most excited the Tennessee folks have been about a quarterback until Nico. And Nico is such an interesting story because kind of the first big NIL deal, when I was at The Athletic, we reported on the contract that Nico got at Tennessee or with Tennessee's collective. And it was the first time you saw a collective step up at a school that had not been getting a certain kind of recruit, where they made a big deal to make sure they got that certain kind of recruit. And so there's been all this pressure on him from that standpoint. And I think Tennessee's tried pretty hard to protect him. You haven't heard a lot of public comments from Nico. There doesn't do a ton of interviews. So we're going to play some clips because he did a press conference before they started camp. They started camp yesterday. He talked on Tuesday. And this is a guy we've been waiting to hear from. We've been waiting to see what he is as the starter. Now, remember, he did start the bowl game against Iowa last year and was very good in that game against a very good defense. But Iowa's offense was basically non-functional. So it's a little bit hard to tell exactly how well he did because as good as Iowa's defense was, remember, Cooper Jean was hurt. And also, they just kept getting put in horrific positions by the offense. But Nico was efficient in that game. He didn't light the world on fire with his passing numbers, ran when he needed to run, scored touchdowns on the ground. Can he be the difference maker for Tennessee this year? I'm seeing the tweets out of Patriots camp, and they are very funny. Now, look, Drake May is going to wind up the starter in New England. Joe Milton is trying to make the team. Let's be real here. Joe Milton is just trying to make the team. But you're getting tweets from NFL reporters that are like, look at what Joe Milton's doing. He's showing just as much as Drake May in camp. Guys, we know how this story ends. Just ask the folks who follow college football how this story ends. We know. We know. Stephen Wilson in the chat correcting me. Jerry Colquitt, the starter against UCLA, I believe, in 1994 for Tennessee. Then Todd, then Peyton. That's right. My bad. Brandon Stewart ended up going to Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken, but he was also in the mix there. So with Nico, it's an interesting question. We got a Dear Andy question last week about if Caden Salter had not gotten dismissed at Tennessee, would he have been Tennessee's starting quarterback last year? And I don't think that's what would have happened. Caden Salter ended up going to Liberty. He's very good there. He was great in Jamie Chadwell's offense in his first year. I expect big things out of him this year. But I don't think that would happen. I think Nico's arrival might have chased him off anyway, even if he hadn't been dismissed. Nico clearly was the future for Tennessee. But this is a case where you've got a class of 2023 quarterback who's ready to ascend. And we're seeing this in a couple places. Obviously, Oklahoma with Jackson Arnold, Kansas State with Avery Johnson. Those are getting probably as much buzz as this one because their quarterbacks went to national title contenders. Like Dylan Gabriel is now starting at Oregon. Will Howard is now starting at Ohio State. Those two might wind up facing off for the Big Ten title, might wind up in the playoff because their old school was more excited about a young 2023 QB. Tennessee's a little bit different story because Joe Milton had exhausted his eligibility, but Nico's the guy that they've all been waiting for at Tennessee. And came out of the box with some interesting takes. Like, he likes playing on the road even better than playing at home.
What are your thoughts on road games, neutral site games? Like, do you enjoy going into somebody else's house versus, being at home?
I definitely love road games more than home games. I don't want to upset, our Neyland fans. I love playing in Neyland Stadium, but I feel like, away games, I just feel like all the odds are against you. Gives you a little more, just gives you a little bit more, that feeling that you get. Yeah, you could say focus. I think there's plenty of other words that you can use, but going on the road is something I've always loved to do since a young age.
So how excited are you for Oklahoma then to open conference play?
Yeah, I'm excited. Yes, ma'am, I'm excited.
Good news, Nico. You get to play at Oklahoma this year in Oklahoma's first SEC game. And you get to play at Georgia. So you're going to get your wish. But I like that answer. I like that answer. I like the idea of the dude who wants to quiet the crowd. It's great when your home fans are behind you. But I heard John Elway talking about this too, where he was on Pardon My Take, and he was talking about how it was actually more fun for him in his career to get the crowd quieted down, to hear the energy get sucked out of a stadium when you're on the road. That Tennessee-Oklahoma game is going to be bananas, by the way. Bananas. It is Josh Heupel returning to Tennessee, or to Oklahoma, where he obviously played, led them to a national title, was the offensive coordinator for a while, and then got fired by Bob Stoops, who then hired Lincoln Riley. Josh Heupel ends up going on a vision quest where he discovers some things about what offense he wants to run. He goes to Utah State, then he goes to Missouri, then he becomes the head coach at UCF. I don't know that Josh Heupel is the head coach he is today if he doesn't get fired at Oklahoma when he does. But that is a major, major storyline. And then you have Nico going into his first true road game, his first true road start at Oklahoma. Holy crap. By the way, good practice for that. Tennessee is playing NC State in Charlotte in week 2. That's going to be a great game. That's a good litmus test game for both of those teams, because I think NC State could be one of the best teams in the ACC. In Charlotte, I would imagine that's a pretty split crowd. It's an easy drive for the Vols fans, and obviously very easy drive for the NC State fans, and a lot of them probably live in Charlotte. So that is going to be a lot of fun, but he's going to kind of get the practice. He's going to get that 50-50 split situation, and then a couple weeks later, he's going to Norman, where it is going to be off the chain for that first SEC game for Oklahoma. Now, the Nico question, and this is something that the Tennessee fans have been asking a lot. A lot of bar stools in Tennessee have had people sitting on them asking this question. Should Nico have taken over for Joe Milton at the end of last season, in the tail end of last season? Would Tennessee have had a better year had they put Nico in? And I think it's an interesting question, because if you're Josh Heupel, you've got to be careful. You have this freshman quarterback you think can be great. He's a little bit, his frame's a little bit light. And obviously, getting thrown in the middle of SEC play is not the easiest thing in the world for a freshman. So do you risk hurting his confidence, not having him in the ideal situation, or do you wait to make him the starter when they did? And Nico said he always expected it to go this way.
What's it like, going from being a freshman here and learning from Joe, and now kind of right away stepping into that leadership role yourself?
Well, yeah, I think that was always my vision. Come in early, learn from a guy like Joe, learn from Hendo when, he was still here during that bro prep. And, yeah, man, I think it was great for me. And it's really, what I envisioned. Sit the first year, soak up as much as I can soak up. And, year 2 was go time for me.
So that was the plan all along. And it looked like the plan. And I think, Tennessee also probably wanted to reward Joe Milton. Josh Heupel wanted to reward Joe Milton, who was the starting quarterback in 2021, got basically benched for Hendon Hooker, and then Hooker's the guy in all of 2022, and Milton waited his turn, waited patiently, and so it made sense. But last year certainly did feel more like a bridge year to what was next for Tennessee. Guys in the chat also pointing out after that Oklahoma game, Tennessee's got an open date, and then they head to Arkansas, which, as Stephen Wilson points out, Tennessee always plays on a razor's edge in Fayetteville. Yes, let's not remind Clint Sterner and company about what happened in 1998 there, because that's about as razor's edge as it got for that Tennessee national title team. But Clint Sterner fumble bailed the Vols out of that one. But this is just an interesting situation here. The one thing with Nico, I mentioned the frame. So 6'5". When you saw him in high school, he was pretty skinny. And I've said this over and over again. I was like, remember, this guy's dad is huge. This guy's dad is like 6'6", over 300 pounds. I suspect as Nico gets older, gets into his 20s, that you're going to see him fill out. And you could have a pretty big dude playing quarterback by the end of all of this. So he got asked about his weight going into this season, and it is definitely up, probably about 20 pounds from when he arrived on campus.
215 now. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, pretty accurate. Yeah, you know, I'm around that range, 213, 214. Still trying to be more consistent with, you know, getting up to 220. But yeah, that's somewhere I'm at right now.
Has it been a hard process to put on and maintain?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it definitely, I burned a lot of calories easy when I first got here. You know, I was pretty light my senior year, so being able to put on, you know, as much weight as I can this off season, you know, I've gotten great help with our nutrition staff, our strength program. So yeah, they've been helping me out pretty
the
well.
nutrition plans made?
Yeah, more meals. Yeah, more meals. Showing up to breakfast, more breakfast for me. I think breakfast meals are, you know, the hardest for me. But yeah, getting breakfast in for me, and you know, all 4 meals throughout the day.
What's been your breakfast go-to now that you developed one?
Breakfast? Yeah, I've been sticking with the French toast, eggs, and, you know, sausage. That's pretty much what I've been sticking with.
French toast may be the most popular dish in Knoxville if this season goes well. Like, you go to Scrambled Jake's, great brunch place in Knoxville. I guarantee they're going to have like a French toast special if Nico just takes off and leads this team to the playoff. That's the thing when you watch him play against Iowa. He was very judicious when he chose to run the ball. I don't think he was putting himself in harm's way necessarily, but he does run the ball when he needs to run the ball. Dan Mullen, who used to coach at Florida, used to call it a willing runner, and that's what you want in your quarterback. And that's a big difference between Nico and Joe Milton, where Joe Milton didn't necessarily make the best decisions or didn't have the natural instincts in that read option game like Hendon Hooker did. Hendon Hooker had great instincts in the read option game. We'll see if Nico can get to that point. But that was very helpful. And remember, Tennessee ran the ball really well last year. Jalen Wright was awesome. So, you know, Dylan Sampson possibly with Nico, that read option mesh, if Nico's making the right choices, he reads that unblocked defender, you're going to see him take off a few times. Is he big enough to handle it? At 215, you know, maybe, but that's still not a huge frame. Like, I would imagine that at some point, Nico, as a senior in college, if he stayed 4 years in college, or if he winds up going to the NFL and he's been in the NFL a couple of years, you're probably dealing with like a 6'5", 235-pound quarterback, which that's a very scary running threat. Right now, we'll see where he's at. But at 215, a lot better than, say, 195. And that probably factors into the decisions we were talking about earlier. Like, do you do this? Do you not do this with Josh Heupel and Joe Milton? Now, probably big enough to hold up, but you got to be careful still, because think about some of the monsters that they're going to be playing against. They got some dudes on that roster that you make the wrong pull and you get splattered, it's a very different season. So Nico will have to be careful about that. But I am intrigued by what he can do in the quarterback run game and how that sort of opens some things up in the pass game. And of course, like every other question or every other person we've talked to in the past month, he got asked about the video game.
Dynasty, shoot. I haven't even loaded up Dynasty yet. I've been on the road to the college football playoffs. I've been playing a couple seasons of those. Got a couple natties under my belt, but I think Dynasty I might go with when I do make one, I might be Simp. I don't know, D-Simp, he got a little wiggle out the backfield, but yeah, I haven't loaded up Dynasty yet.
Since we're on that topic, got your name pronunciation slightly wrong.
Yeah.
You trying to make some calls to EA? Or?
Yeah, shoot, man. I feel like they've watched a couple game copies. I think our announcers kind of messed it up too. So, I mean, I can't blame them. But yeah, we'll hopefully get it right after. You know, I play a couple games this year.
All right, Tennessee fans, that answer should make you very happy because here's how little Nico's been playing the video game. He's mixing up Dynasty mode with Road to Glory mode. He got asked about Road to Glory, not Dynasty mode. And he's like, I'll use Dylan Sampson in Dynasty mode. No, that's Road to Glory. That's a good sign. That means your QB hadn't been playing video games for the past 3 weeks straight, like, I don't know, everybody else I know, including my own son who doesn't let me play most of the time because he's busy, like, beating random dudes with South Carolina. So I need to see this, but I like the answers. I like the answers from Nico. And yes, the pronunciation thing. Iamaleava. Hold on one more time. Iamaleava. For anybody else who needs to hear it, Iamaleava. It's just we're going to have to know that name. I feel like that is a team we got to know, or a name we got to know in college football. Just like we've needed to know Uiagalelei for the last few years, not just for DJ, who's going to be the starting quarterback at Florida State, but also his brother Mateo, probably going to be a very good edge rusher for Oregon. So Uiagalelei, Iamaleava. That also may be a matchup in the playoff if all goes well for Tennessee and Florida State. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh, okay, we just heard Nico talk about his love for road games. Just imagine in December in Tallahassee, Doak Campbell Stadium, the marching Chiefs blasting out the war chant, everyone shopping, and Nico comes out of the visitors' tunnel. Iamaleava versus Uiagalelei. Who knows? It might happen. It'd also be a rematch of the 1998 national championship game in the Fiesta Bowl, which unfortunately did not feature future Heisman Trophy winner Chris Weinke. That was Marcus Rooster Outson starting for Florida State against T. Martin and company and the Vols. And that is your Andy is old segment for today. But I'm fascinated by Nico. He's been under all this pressure. There's a lot of people who look at him and say, oh, giant NIL deal, not ready for it. It's just too much too soon. I just remember going to see him when he was still in high school. He was visiting Knoxville, getting just mobbed. This is right after he committed. And I thought to myself, just watching him handle all that, if there's a person who can deal with this part of it, he seems like he's wired to deal with it. And we'll see. Because it's different when you become the starter. But he does seem wired for it. And watching him talk, take questions, give fairly expansive answers, I'm really, really excited to see what he can be. You know, this is kind of the poster child of the NIL era, and we've not really seen him but for the one bowl game. So we'll find out. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.